it could turn out there's a gift and opportunity here. So maybe this is a better course of action. So it's being flexible and having those regular touch bases. I mean, you should be checking in at least once a month on where you're tracking. And if you really want to slay your goals, you need to get an accountability partner. And I don't care who it is, it could be a close friend or family member. It could be a coach, a therapist, a pastor, just a business mentor. It's somebody that you feel comfortable and who can truly hold you accountable.
What if the truth came in a gel cap and we could just pop it in our mouths and forget about it? Well, it doesn't, and we can't. But we can laugh in the face of reality while plotting our survival. Welcome to the Truth Tastes Funny podcast. I am your host, Hirsch Redpun, and if my guests can handle the truth, so can you. Open wide, folks. Here it comes. My conversation today on Truth Tastes Funny is with Lisa Hammett. Lisa's an international best-selling author of From Burnout to Best Life, a TEDx, a motivational speaker, and a success coach. And welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much.
I am excited to have you. You have remarkable energy, wonderful energy. So let's start off with, how does a person maintain a level of energy that is productive and inspiring and not just flame out, burn out, freak out in today's world?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I believe that you should start your day with intention and whatever speaks to you, if it's God, devotions, if it's gratitude, if it's fitness, if it's, whatever it is you need to have this definite routine in the morning that grounds you and gets you going. So mine starts out with an hour walk with my dog. And then I come back, and as I'm eating, I do devotional readings and affirmations. I'm a firm believer in affirmations. And then that incorporates, practicing gratitude, that kind of thing. And then I'm also big into positive intelligence, mental fitness. So I always start with a really good mental charge by getting my brain in the right headspace, because that is so important. As you had mentioned, there's just so much garbage in the world today, and they can just pull for us in all different directions. And we may wake up feeling pretty good. And then if we look at our phone or read the news or whatever it is, we can just completely tank our energy. So, it's so important to really do those things that give you that strong mental charge. So I do my positive intelligent little micro meditations, and then I start my day. So that's really, if I don't do that, I can pretty much guarantee my day is not going to be as great.
Well, the physical fitness part, like for me, is a huge contributor to what I consider to be my intellectual fitness in the day. Like if I don't go exercise in the morning, I don't feel like I'm hitting on all cylinders. Yep. And I don't have to do that before I work. I just have to do it, in the morning. I have to do it before I get tired again in the morning.
Exactly.
What about patience? What role does patience play? Like you mentioned, taking an hour-long walk, and that, to me, the idea that I could walk for an hour, like go out for an hour-long walk, is not a daily thing that I could do.
Okay. Well, everybody's different. So I just block it into my day. But, some people, like you have children, and, your day starts with certain things that you have to do, and that's not realistic. So then you work in blocks of time that do work for you. And, maybe it's a 15-minute, segment of activity, or, whatever it is. We don't have human children. We have four-legged children. So clearly that, is a lot less responsibility in some regards. So,
In some regards.
in some regards. So we have, a different situation, and you just have to be flexible and find, really what works for you. Because what we often do is we try to force ourselves into doing certain things because we feel we should do it. And that whole shoulda thing is a recipe for disaster, because that doesn't necessarily mean it's something we enjoy and that we're good at. So, just saying that, oh gosh, going to the gym for an hour, for example, oh, my doctor says I should start doing that, or walking for an hour because it's so good for you. Yeah. Okay, yes, it has health benefits, but if you hate going to the gym, you're not going to do it. So, you've got to do what's right for you.
Yeah, we don't do anything that we hate routinely. If we do, it's a recipe for it's like a downward spiral. Like I heard someone talk about how they hated their job so much, they would say to their partner every day before they left, oh, I'm going to hell again, going to do the, and it was like eventually had to stop, because it was like, and obviously there were rewards or they wouldn't be doing it at all, but it was just, you realize you just hate this with a passion. Like this isn't even, there are certain things about my job that I don't like. We all have that. We all have the part we don't like to do. Now, tell us a little bit about what preceded your career as a wellness kind of coach and author and all this. There was probably, a couple of decades of a little something called the retail experience. Share a little bit about that, Lisa.
Well, the description that you had of that individual that says, I'm going to hell.
Yeah.
It kind of does become a self-fulfilling prophecy. What you keep putting out there comes back to you. But in my case, I spent 26 years in the corporate retail sector, and I reached burnout. And if anybody listening has ever been in the public service industry, whether it's retail, restaurant, what have you, when you're dealing with the public, it can be very stressful. It's also it trends based on the economy. There's a lot of pressure. You're constantly changing things. And I reached burnout. And in my case, I was 65 pounds overweight, and I was suffering from migraines and digestive issues, and my marriage was rocky. And I was literally making myself physically ill on Sunday evenings, anticipating the crap I was going to walk into on Monday morning. And I was working all the time, like 80 hours a week. And when I would come home, I could not disconnect from it, because there was just all these things that had to be done. So it was just a big cluster. And in a moment of desperation, basically, I quit, because I'm like, mentally, I have no more bandwidth to do this. My marriage would have ended probably if I didn't, make some sort of change. So I left, and it was mentally the best thing that I could do. And it certainly led me into what I'm doing now. But it was really difficult financially, because I did not come up with a strategy of how to replace my high salary. So we ended up filing bankruptcy down the road. And fortunately, we moved through that, thankfully, and we're in a good place now. But that's what happens when we allow ourselves to get into such a bad situation. And if you don't make a change, your health is going to suffer. It could be your relationships, financially, whatever it is, but you've got to make that positive change. So that's what I did.
Now, when was this that you abruptly quit your job?
It was in September of 2005.
Okay. All right. So now by the time the pandemic rolls around, and a lot of people are, as a result, started to say, well, I don't need this. What do I need? What do I need this for? I don't want to do this job anymore. And all those things that people are thinking without necessarily having a plan, and also living in a world where, it is harder and harder to have a plan. because the world is in
True.
upheaval. It just is. It just is what it is. And
Mhm.
on one hand, I think it gives us a chance to focus on what's important. And it also to us, and it's different to everybody, and what's important to us, and seize the moment for those things. What do you tell people these days when they come to you with this kind of uncertainty and restlessness?
I see people all the time in that situation, and life is too short. One, you should not tolerate a toxic environment. I don't care if you are a year out from retirement. And again, I don't want to imply that, oh, you should just quit a job and, all this, and you're going to lose all your retirement. No, I'm not that unrealistic. But the point is, there are steps that you can take to help make positive change in your life. And it might not necessarily mean that you exit a career, but it's so important to get to the point of where you are living into your values, your passions, and your strengths. And I do this exercise with my clients from the beginning, whether, they're trying to lose weight, whether they are, going through some kind of job transition, or they just want to improve their life in some way. And oftentimes unhappiness is because we're not living into our values. And we need to really get an alignment of what are those things that are most important to us in our life? What are we passionate about? What lights a fire under us? And then obviously we have to look at our skills and our talents. We can't just say, oh, I love doing this, so I'm just going to go do this now, without some forethought. Okay, that's great.
Right.
How can you maybe incorporate that into skills that you have? So there has to be some thoughtfulness in it. Don't do what I did.
Yeah.
So,
well, what you're saying isn't even so much don't do what I did, but don't let it go as long as I did.
Yes.
One thing I notice also is that a lot of people are combining success coaching with life coaching, which is something that you do. To me, it makes perfect sense because success is relative, like we were just talking about. But is there a sensibility that you bring to that? Because I think for some people, I don't know how anyone would separate it, honestly. I could imagine somebody being unhappy in an area of their personal life and being very fulfilled by their job, or vice versa. But I don't see how the two are not, connected. How did you come to the conclusion that you wanted to combine these two things?
Well, I like the term success coach because success is so different to everybody.
Right.
Your version of success could be completely different for me. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be very affluent, although finances and being comfortable is important, but it could be family. It could be, your faith, whatever it is. But there has to be really identifying kind of what your purpose is and creating a mission statement. And that ties into everything. I mean, that's all aspects of your life. So, if you're creating this purpose vision statement to reach your success life, well, that's going to bleed into all areas of your life. So there's the life coaching. So it's really all of one. It's just kind of a different way of marketing yourself, I guess, is the way I look at it. So
yeah, I mean, it is a matter of perspective. It's a matter of mindset. Where do you sense people are at right now? Like, I look at it in terms of not cycles, although there are cycles. I mean, there are clear cycles. Like we keep referring to these times as unprecedented, and in certain ways they are, but in other ways, we just repeat the same stuff over and over again.
Totally.
We may make more serious mistakes each time we make the same mistake. It may be more serious. The stakes may be higher, but I don't know that human nature has changed.
No.
Where do you see the human psychology at, right now?
I think right now people are overall so done with the pandemic that they are out. They're like, I'm going to live my life now and I'm going to travel. And the travel industry is exploding right now, even in the midst of, recession and not sure what's going to happen, coming into fall into next year. And especially with the political climate and everything. But I think they were just like, gosh, I'm so done and I want to live my life. But then there's also this uncertainty too. And, people are getting laid off and then they're like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? And, so it's kind of a combination. And I think more and more people are finding that, what, I don't want to end my career in a corporate job. I'm not making that a blanket statement, everybody in general, but the trend for new entrepreneurs going out and becoming a consultant is still just exploding. And I don't see that going away because people want that freedom. They're starting to realize that, what, life is a lot more important and involves so much more than just a paycheck. Yeah. So I think the pandemic really kind of showed that.
Also, I don't know that the rewards are there for the people who were, what we would have previously referred to as, company men and women or lifers, that were willing to be in the same job or company for 40 years. That company doesn't give them that sense of security or mobility as was once the case.
So true.
So I think the surge in entrepreneurship, the surge in even smaller companies, boutique companies in different areas, versus the company job just seem more practical. I have more control over my success or failure than Absolutely. I do if I work for someone else. Now, where are you located? Where do you live?
I live in the Dallas area, McKinney, Texas, which is about 30 miles northeast of Dallas. I'm about an hour from the Oklahoma border. Yeah. So, yeah.
Are you from Texas?
No.
Okay.
We actually moved from California back in 2002. Kind of funny story. So was still in my corporate retail phase then, and JCPenney corporate relocated us. I was working in San Francisco at the time, and headhunter called me, said they're looking for people. Would you be interested? So came out here, and we were starting to get kind of tired of living in California. We were both born and raised there. It had a lot of great things going for it, but it was at the height of the economic boom, and homes were selling for like 200,000 over asking. It was just ridiculous. And
you were in San Francisco?
We were in the Bay Area. I was working in San Francisco, and it was just insane. So we're like, it would be nice to see another part of the world. So I signed a 3-year contract, a 2-year contract, actually, thinking, okay, I'll be there for 2 years. We in no way thought we would stay in Texas this long. And well, that was 21 years ago. And we really like it. We've moved, several times since being here, but now we're in a historic district within walking distance to this really cool, vibrant downtown square that has a great restaurants and culture. And it's a really fun environment. And you kind of feel like you've gone back in time because all the homes, were built, and some in the late 1800s, but most in the early 1900s. And all the neighbors just kind of look out for each other. And it's a really cool community to be in. So we're here.
What is the weather like there?
Oh, it's hot. Yeah. That's the thing. People ask me, do you miss California at all? And, my in-laws are in Palm Springs, so obviously we miss them. Right. And I have a couple still good close friends who live there, so I miss them. But at some point, they're looking to leave. They've stayed there because they had kids in school, and they're not going to retire there. They're getting ready to leave. So the weather is really the only thing I shouldn't say the only thing, the biggest thing why
Yeah.
I miss California, because it is so hot here. It's, triple digits. And this year it's been really humid. So you feel like you're
Right.
just being like smothered with a pillow.
Yeah.
So
And I'm interested in this for a number of reasons, but primarily because, as we talk about, not burning out, staying happy, staying healthy, we can talk about the workplace on the one hand, but then we can also talk about the environment that we find
yes,
ourselves in. What are some of your thoughts on the role that, location plays in our happiness?
it's huge. It's huge. And I don't know if you're familiar with the Gallup studies that are
Sure.
out there, but there was, and I'm drawing a complete blank and I'm embarrassed that I'm forgetting this, but it was workplace something. And it was a Gallup study. And one of a very large factor in our health and happiness and well-being is the sense of community that we feel from the environments that we reside in. So obviously that pertains to work too, but it's also the physical spaces in which we live. And if we're in an area that we do not like and we can't get positive energy from our environment, then that can really start to suck the life out of you, just in the same way that a toxic work environment can suck the life out of you. And that sense of community it's where you shop, it's where you live, it's the activities that are available to you, it's the friendships that you have. It's just the overall environment. And is it a nice, environment to live in? So it's huge, plays a huge factor.
Yeah. And then you think about, you just mentioned friends that you have in California that are not feeling like they want to retire there, or, some people would just look, I worked forever. I am not going to be able to afford to retire here. It's just a reality. So eventually people think about where they want to retire, and retirement now is not what it was recently. People would again have that corporate mindset of some random number of 62, 65, like as though it means anything. It's all relative to what we decide we want to do with our lives and make ourselves happy. But let's say the years, after, the 60s, 70s, hopefully 80s, 90s, whatever it might be, in good health, like in what way do you kind of coach people who are looking ahead at that part of their journey?
Well, I think it ultimately ties into that vision statement of what you want for your life, and what ultimately is driving you. Why do you want that? So, that vision statement has to be linked to your why you're here. Why are those top 2 or 3 core values so important to you? And, you kind of have to get that end big picture, and you have to attach it to an emotion so you're invested in it. And then you have to dig deep as to why is that important? Is it because you want to live a healthy, happy life so that you can grow old with your grandchildren? Or is it maybe that you want to be able to travel the world? You haven't had the opportunity to do that. Or maybe it's to do philanthropic work that you've always wanted to do and you haven't had that opportunity. So you really need to kind of think about that. And then once you have like that big picture, then you can kind of start thinking about, okay, so what are those milestone goals that I need to take into account? And then break those down into smaller goals. And then, okay, let's talk about those action items that will help you achieve those smaller goals. So it's kind of a process, if you will, but it really starts with that vision statement. And it's really kind of the same thought process that people who are, athletes, pro athletes or Olympians, why they win and why they're successful at what they do. They develop this winner's mindset where they can visualize themselves doing these plays, achieving that medal, and the life that it's going to create for them and their family, and how they're going to feel, and the elation when they hear the crowds roar, and, all of that, because that really helps get you invested in that future. Yeah.
Yeah. I think having the right perspective and the right, like I remember people saying, oh, don't dream like about, don't visualize what you want to have happen. Visualize what you think will happen if you stay on the course you're on, so that you can really project reasonably what's going to happen. And at first I resisted it because I was like, well, all you're really doing is kind of implying that I should imagine the worst. imagine like what's wrong and then how to avoid it or something like that. But it really, what I came to realize was it was really a way of thinking realistically. So, in terms of that, being realistic while trying not to be limited, like, do you find that's a hard kind of balance to strike?
You have to do the work. I'm just going to put it out there. You have to do the work. And, you'll hear people say, and, like The Secret, I'm sure you've heard of The Secret. Yeah. It's like, what you think about, you will manifest, and you'll have this beautiful life. And yes, what you think about becomes your belief system, and that certainly drives your behavior. But bottom line is, you have to follow up that beautiful vision of what you want your future to be with action. And you can't just sit back and say, okay, I have this fabulous vision and this is what my life's going to be like, and it's super, and I don't have to do anything. I can just sit back and that abundance is going to come to me. It's like, no, probably not. You need to do the work. And I think that's where people get hung up. They think, well, I've got the right mindset. My life is great. Things are positive. I'm thankful. I'm grateful. That's great. That's over half the battle, because if your head's not in the game, it's going to be really, really hard for you to be successful in any area of life. But then you have to do the work. You can't just take a free ride.
Yeah. Yeah. I when you spoke a few minutes ago about mapping out, your goals in increments and accomplishing, goals on the road to other goals. One of the things that I find happens to me is I can map it all out, like for the year. I can look at a year, but then what happens is, life happens. Then, every day something happens that, for better or worse, it could be good too, but something happens where it's like, okay, well, so I got to focus on that. And then you look at your sheet or your board and you say, oh, okay, so I had like quarterly goals, I had annual goals, but if I'm hitting those, it's like at random almost, it seems to me, in my personal, because I'm like, okay, I got everything I had for today checked off somehow, but tomorrow I got another list. And then next week I gotta, how am I time goes by so fast.
It does.
Time goes by so fast. It used to be like when you were miserable at something, time wouldn't move at all. And, we've all had those experiences like we talked about. And I had jobs where, as a young man, I literally did anything I could to escape where I was at that job. It just was temporary. I had to, I had a young family and I had to make money, and I knew it wasn't forever. I didn't feel like it was forever. So I didn't feel trapped, so to speak, but I was waiting for this other stuff to come together that I was working. But every day I would be like, just kind of psyching myself up to survive that day. And, one of the things that seems hard to do is to pull back away from the daily grind so that you can orient are there some strategies for that?
Yes. Oh gosh. It's so funny. I wish you had been at my most recent webinar that I had earlier this month. And it was, because you could have shared all that. It's awesome. It ties in perfectly to the topic, which was basically reassessing and reflecting on your goals and how do you redirect yourself when you need to. And the important thing is, yes, you still need that big vision. You need those big goals. You need the smaller goals. You need the action steps. But to your point, life is going to happen. no matter what. So you need to be scheduling regular touch bases, to check and see, okay, what do I need to adjust? What do I need to adjust? Because I guarantee, especially if you're looking at a 5 or a 10-year plan, you're going to be pivoting multiple times. And that's just the way it is. It doesn't mean that you have to completely miss the mark on your goal. It just means that, okay, you just might need to redirect a little bit and refocus. And this is often hard for people because, as you kind of mentioned, that day-to-day grind, you get stuck in the weeds, and all you see is like, oh, I've got to do this because I just have to. And you get so stuck in this minutia stuff. And it's not that it's not important, but it takes the eye off of that big picture. And that's, the mental fitness that I love so much and what I'm certified in is really being able to assess when you get stuck in the weeds like that and feel like you're spiraling. That's when you're hijacked from your left brain. And it's learning how to shift that and then really work out of your right brain, because that is where you have clear-headed focus, you're calm, you're peaceful. When challenges arise, you can look at it with curiosity and say, oh, that's interesting. That's not exactly what I anticipated, but you know what? It could turn out there's a gift and opportunity here. So maybe this is a better course of action. So it's being flexible and having those regular touch bases. I mean, you should be checking in at least once a month on where you're tracking. And if you really want to slay your goals, you need to get an accountability partner. And I don't care who it is, it could be a close friend or family member. It could be a coach, a therapist, a pastor, just a business mentor. It's somebody that you feel comfortable and who can truly hold you accountable. And sometimes close friends and family members are a little too close to the mark. And maybe either if they do hold you accountable, you could feel resentment, or maybe they don't have they're too invested. They can't look at it as objectively. Sure. So sometimes it's really helpful to hire somebody like a business coach or a life coach, or, even your pastor, for example, if that's the space that you're in, somebody who can look at it from a bigger lens and be objective.
Thanks so much for tuning into Truth Tastes Funny. If you enjoyed the experience, please leave a 5-star review and share this podcast with your friends.